Okay, here we go. Welcome. Welcome to session number 172. 172 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. Today we are finishing chapter 21. Chapter 21 being entitled Reason and Perception. And we are in the last section, section 8, Roman numeral 8, on page 465 in the text. And section 8 is entitled The Inner Shift. Okay. And so, let's begin. Well, of course, before we begin, I have to say something. We hearken back to the last session, the last unanswered question, and Jesus is going to be talking about these questions again. All right, and just we'll quickly go over them. They're on page 463 if you have the book with you. It's, do I desire a world that I rule instead of one that rules me? Second, do I desire a world where I am powerful instead of helpless? Do I desire a world in which I have no enemies and cannot sin? And the last unanswered question, and do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? Okay. That being said, we can march on. He'll refer to them in a second. Are thoughts dangerous then? Are thoughts then dangerous? To bodies, yes. The thoughts that seem to kill are those that teach the thinker that he can be killed. And so he dies because of what he learned. He goes from life to death. The final proof, he valued the inconstant more than constancy. Surely he thought he wanted happiness, yet he did not desire it because it was the truth, and therefore must be constant. All right, so he's telling us, once you're in a body, thoughts are dangerous. All right, you can have thoughts that are detrimental to you and detrimental to others. Downright dangerous. All right? So are thoughts then dangerous? To bodies, yes. All right? Because the thoughts that seem to kill are those that teach the thinker he can be killed. So these thoughts that become dangerous, they begin with the thought that teaches me that I can be killed. I'm vulnerable, which means that I've left the mind of God. So that thought tells me that I can be killed now. All right, you are vulnerable. And we go our merry way. All right, because of that veil of forgetfulness that falls once I am fully ensconced in the ego's thought system. All right. So they teach us, these thoughts teach us that I can be killed because I separated from God. Now I'm on my own. Okay? And this is a very competitive world, to say the least. Competitive is a nice word for it. All right? You know, people in business, they like his killer mentality. All right? In sports even, he has a killer mentality. Because you have to go get what everybody else wants. So, thoughts are dangerous. Okay? And so he dies because we've taught ourselves you can die. And so we die because of what we learned. All right? In the ego thought system, we learned that we're vulnerable. All right? And that life doesn't go on forever. All right? The body doesn't last forever. All that stuff. Right? So we die because of what we learned. And he goes from life to death. The proof, he valued the inconstant more than constancy. So my so-called life that, has a certain span, and then there's a demise, right, and I'm gone. He says this becomes the proof that you valued what is inconstant, all right, the ego. Because in reality, in heaven, so to speak, there's only constancy. It's only constant oneness, constant happiness, all right, constant extension of happiness. All right? And so he dies because of what he learned. He goes from life to death. The final proof, he valued the inconstant more than constancy. So we valued the thought of separation more than we did the oneness of heaven. He goes, surely he thought he wanted happiness. You give me the benefit of the doubt here. All right? Surely he thought he wanted happiness, yet he did not desire it because it was the truth, and therefore must be constant. All right? That's that last unanswered question. Do I want to see what I denied? Because it is the truth. He says, you don't want happiness because it is the truth. You wanted the ego's brand of happiness, whatever that is. All right? Yet he did not desire it because it was the truth, and therefore must be constant. Surely we think we want happiness. All right, so we go looking outside the mind for it. All right, that old song, looking for love in all the wrong places. Right? So, paragraph 2. The constancy of joy is a condition quite alien to your understanding. Yet, if you could even imagine what it must be, you would desire it, although you understand it not. The constancy of happiness has no exceptions, no change of any kind. It is unshakable, as is the love of God for his creation. Sure in its vision as its creator is in what he knows. Happiness looks on everything and sees it is the same. It sees not the ephemeral, for it desires everything to be like itself, and sees it so. Nothing has power to confound its constancy, because its own desire cannot be shaken. It comes as surely unto those who see the final question is necessary to the rest, as peace must come to those who choose to heal and not to judge. Okay? So he says, in this ego situation we find ourselves in, he says the constancy of joy is a condition that's alien to your understanding. It just is. It's beyond what you can understand in the ego. Yet if you could even imagine what it must be, you would want it, okay? If you could even imagine what this constant joy is, you would want it, even though you don't understand it. If you could just imagine what it is. Right? And he says the constancy of happiness has no exceptions, no change of any kind. So it's constant, doesn't change, and it has no exceptions. You're always joyous. There's no buts. Yeah, but you're always joyous. There's no change. It's constant. Okay. He says, it is unshakable, as is the love of God for his creations. All right? God's love for you is unshakable. All right? And it's constant. Sure in its vision, as its creator is in what he knows. All right? So what we see through the eyes of joy is sure, just as sure as the creator knows what he sees. Okay? Happiness looks on everything and sees it as the same. All right? There's no differentiation, there's no duality. All right? Everything is the same. And happiness looks on this and remains happy. Okay? It sees not the ephemeral. All right? It doesn't see the ephemeral, what doesn't last forever. It doesn't see that. Right? For it desires everything to be like itself and sees it so. So, this is the constancy of happiness. It looks on everything as the same, and it desires everything to be like itself. All right? It desires everything to be like itself, and it sees it so. Nothing has the power to confound its constancy. All right? Now, it's just that little parenthetical phrase there. Nothing has the power to confound its constancy. Right? Including that tiny mad idea that said, oh, maybe I could be separate from God. Maybe I could be separate from the oneness. He says, you might believe you could accomplish that, but no. This is not even that silly thought could confound the constancy of joy. It couldn't change it. Okay. Because its own desire cannot be shaken. All right. The joy just wants to be experienced as joy and wants everything to experience joy. All right. This is the constancy of heaven. It comes as surely unto those who see the final question as necessary to the rest. As peace comes to those who choose to heal and not to judge. So joy comes to us surely when we see that the final question is necessary to the rest. The final question being, do I want to see what I denied? Because it is the truth. Do I want to see who I truly am? Okay? And he says, answering that question positively, saying, yes, I want to see who I truly am. He says, the joy will come to you. All right? It comes surely unto those who see the final question is necessary to the rest. And it comes as surely as peace must come to those who choose to heal and not to judge. So surely peace will come to us when we choose to heal, when we ask that our perceptions be corrected so that we're not projecting guilt. All right, we're choosing to heal our mind. We're choosing to heal our relationships. All right? And peace will come to you. All right? Because you've chosen to heal and not to judge, not to project guilt. All right? And he says that peace will surely come to you. And the joy will surely come to you when you truly want to see what you denied And what you denied was your true self. Okay? Paragraph 3. Reason will tell you that you cannot ask for happiness inconstantly. For if what you desire you receive, and happiness is constant, then you need ask for it but once to have it always. And if you have not done it, if you do not have it always, being what it is, you do not ask for it. Okay? He says you cannot ask for happiness inconstantly. See, he's making like this fine distinction between the first three questions, and that last question. It says, do I want to see who I truly am? Do I want to see who I truly am? Right? And he says, so if you're not happy all the time, then you didn't really ask that last question. You didn't really ask it, in an affirmative way. Yes, I truly want to see who I am. All right? And don't take that as any kind of a finger pointing or, like, oh, I knew there was a catch, Like, people talk about manifesting and things like that. And if you don't manifest what you want, then there's always that little catch. Well, you didn't want it hard enough. And Jesus is basically saying that, but he's going to tell us how we work toward that. Just by noticing, oh, I'm a little afraid of answering that last question. I'm a little afraid of seeing who I truly am, because if I see who I truly am, the ego dissolves. This whole existence just becomes meaningless, right? You can walk through it for a time very happily, in constant joy, and constant understanding of those around you, all right? But you'll know that this is not it, all right? You'll know that my true home is beyond this. So we become a little afraid to ask that question. Ram Dass, I remember, he says, that's in the spiritual journey, it always comes that scary part, that very scary part. When you realize that what's being called for is to give up the ego, give up the partnership with that thought that says I'm separated from God. And Jesus knows that too. He realizes it's a process. He just tells us what's beyond. Right? But he's never pointing a finger at you. Well, you didn't really want it, that's why you didn't get it. Nah. It's never like that. All right? And if you do not have it always, which is the joy, the happiness, if you do not have it always, being what it is, you did not ask for it. For no one fails to ask for his desire of something he believes holds out some promise of the power of giving it. For no one fails to ask for his desire of something he believes holds out some promise of the power of giving it. He may be wrong in what he asks, where and of what, yet he will ask because desire is a request, and asking for, and made by one whom God himself will never fail to answer. God has already given all that he wants. Yet what he is uncertain of, God cannot give. For he does not desire it while he remains uncertain. Right? And God's giving must be incomplete unless it is received. Right? Just very poetic ways of reminding us that we fluctuate, we vacillate, as he said last week. All right. He says you'll only ask of something, you'll ask them because you think they're going to get it to you. All right. And God himself will never fail to answer. God has already given all that he really wants. All right, so God has extended himself. He's already given everything. Yet what he is uncertain of, God cannot give. All right, so in other words, you won't be aware of what God has given you because of uncertainty. You still think there's something here in the ego thought system that will give you happiness. And you're still unsure of your meeting with God, so to speak. You're not sure about that interview. All right. You're still uncertain. You still think there's some element of revenge that God has or something, or anger. You still think that you might have done something wrong. So you're uncertain, right? So when you're uncertain, you're not aware of all that has been given you. Excuse me. That's basically what Jesus is saying here. All right. All right, so we don't desire the totality of heaven while we're still uncertain. That's why it's a process, and you'll reach the point of certainty. Believe me. Jesus says once the journey has begun, the end is certain. Right? You will reach that point of constant joy. It's good to know. All right. Paragraph 4. You who complete God's will and are his happiness, whose will is powerful as his, a power that is not lost in your illusions, think carefully why you have not yet answered how you would answer the final question. You have not yet decided how you would answer the final question. Your answer to the others has made it possible to help you be already partly sane. And yet it is the final one that really asks if you are willing to be wholly sane. Okay? So you who complete God's will and are his happiness, right, and whose will is just as powerful as God's, your will is just the same as God's, whose will is powerful as his, a power that is not lost in your illusions, all right? So that power is not lost even though you think you're helpless. Even in this ego thought system. This is that the power of God's will is not lost. All right? You just forgot where it is. All right? He goes, so that's who you are. So he goes, so think carefully now. Think carefully why you have not yet decided how you would answer the final question. All right? That final question. Do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? Do I want to see who I truly am? Do I want to see my true relationship with God because it is the truth? So he says, look, you're all these great things. Your mind is very powerful. So think about it. How come you haven't decided yet how you would answer that final question? He says your answer to the others has made it possible to help you be ready to be already partly sane. So the answer to those other questions, do I desire a world that I rule, right, instead of one that rules me? Do I desire a world where I'm powerful instead of helpless? He's assuming you've answered these questions in a positive way. Yeah, I desire a world where I'm powerful instead of helpless. Right? And yeah, I desire a world in which I have no enemies. And I cannot sin. Yeah, I want to have a world like that. So he says, answering those questions has already brought you to the place where you're partly sane. You're not crazy all the time. All right? You could stop yourself when you're being a nut. When you're in the ego and you say, wait, I don't want that. I want to see things differently. Above all else, I want to see differently. All right? So he says, those questions have brought you partial sanity. He says, but that last question will make you completely whole and sane. All right? Yet it is the final one that really asks if you're willing to be wholly sane. So am I willing to see my true self? Am I willing to let that rise up in my awareness? Okay. So paragraph 5. What is the holy instant but God's appeal to you to recognize what he has given you? Here is the great appeal to reason. The awareness of what is always there to see. The happiness that could be always yours. Here is the constant peace you could experience forever. Here is what denial has denied, revealed to you. For here, the final question is already answered, and what you ask for is given. Here is the future now. For time is powerless because your desire for what will never change. All right? Time is powerless because of your desire for what will never change. For you have asked that nothing stand between the holiness of your relationship and your awareness of its holiness. In that holy instant, right, when you join with Jesus, Holy Spirit, with your right mind, all right, the place where reason rules, all right, that holy instant, he says, what is it but God's appeal to you to recognize what he has given you? So in that instant, when we join with those symbols, Jesus and Holy Spirit, all right. He says it's an opportunity to realize what God has given you. He says, here's the great appeal to reason, all right. Reason that exists in that part of the mind, the right mind, all right. Reason, seeing through the Holy Spirit's curriculum, seeing through corrected vision. The awareness of what is always there to see. So the awareness of what's always there to see is who you truly are and your connection to everything. That's what's always there for you to see. The happiness that could be yours, always. Right? That's in that holy instant when you join. Join with Jesus. Here is the constant peace you could experience forever in that eternal now. Is that constant peace that you could experience forever. Here in that holy instant is what denial has denied. Here is what denial has denied revealed to you. For here, the final question is already answered, and what you ask for is given. Right? So in that holy instant, when we join with Jesus and Holy Spirit, right, he says, that's where it's all revealed to you. Right? What denial denied is there. It's going to show you. It's going to show you what you denied. For here the final question is already answered, and what you ask for is given. There's that constant peace, that constant joy. You realize that it's there. It's in the mind. That joining with the memory of who you are. Right? Paragraph 5, sentence 6. Here is the future now. For time is powerless because of your desire for what will never change. So when we're in that holy instant, which is the eternal now, his time is powerless. There is no time. There's only the now, the great now. Right. So here's the future now. For time is powerless because of your desire for what will never change. For you have asked that nothing stand between the holiness of your relationship and your awareness of its holiness. So I don't want anything blocking my vision. Right? I don't want anything standing between my holiness and the awareness of my holiness. All right? For you have asked that nothing stand between the holiness of your relationship and the awareness of its holiness. Right? You're willing to let it come through. You're willing to let it rise up in your awareness. Okay? And that becomes the inner shift. Okay? That is definitely the inner shift. When we shift over to that holy instant, and who we truly are rises up in our awareness. That's definitely the inner shift, let me tell you. Right. And he knows we'll get there because, you can get there in the next 2 seconds if you want. But, he knows it's a process where we vacillate. We want this world where I have no enemies, but then I wander back into that world where I have enemies. And he says the way out of that is to ask for help. When I think I perceive an enemy, at some point I can say, I truly want to see correctly. I want to see the truth about this person. I want to see the truth about the other. I'm willing to see it. I'm willing to drop all the judgments I've had and to see the truth. He says that brings me closer to realizing who I truly am. Right. And that's the process. And then you'll have that inner shift. And you'll be aware of your holiness. Okay. All right then. This was a short one today. And I'll see you next time. All right? All righty then. Bye now.